she never be pretending. Nothing that's real. She gon' tell you what she bought it, cause she know you can't afford it. No, you can get it.
Thanks everyone for joining the E-Spot with Camille. I am your host, Camille Cower, and I'm very excited for you to meet my guest today. Oh my gosh, I forgot to make sure I knew how to pronounce your last name, but Javier
Leiva.
Leiva
I'm your
is
backup
here.
today. Yeah.
I'm so excited because this is my first time interviewing a true diehard podcaster who's been doing it longer than me and has like serious experience and background in like producing shows and making like I'm usually talent. So this is me just kind of, I'm assuming this is how things are done and then learned as I was creating. But you have the luckiness of, oh, my Surrey decided she wanted to get involved in our interview as well. That's why I normally take her off. She's always trying to come into my party. You know what I mean? So anyway, so tell everyone how you got started in the entertainment industry. We'll start with that because you're an Emmy award-winning producer and writer.
That's interesting that because, you know, the E in eSpot stands for entertainment. And sometimes I think about myself more as a journalist than an entertainer, but I think you're right. I think I am in the entertainment business. I'm trying to take like real stories and making them entertaining, you know, and so it was your question, like, how did I get started?
Yeah. How did you get started with producing, writing, all of it? Like where did you?
I was pre-med. And that lasted a couple semesters in organic chemistry. My eyes were crossing. I'm like, yeah, that's not for me. So I walked over to my counselor's office and I was like, hey, you know what? I think I want to do this TV thing. I want to try it out. So I interned in the news station and then I also was working at a local PBS station.
When you said you wanted to do this TV thing, what was your envision with that? What did you think you wanted to do? Oh, you didn't know.
I've always wanted to be like a screenwriter and break into Hollywood, but I didn't have the guts to go to LA and wait tables, you know?
I can never wait a table, so I can relate.
So I thought that maybe if I go the broadcast journalism route, that maybe I could someday sneak my way back into the entertainment business. And I guess I have in a weird way, but so I did. I started working at that PBS station as a production guy, and then slowly started writing scripts and producing documentaries, and that's where, from there, the rest is history. You know, that's where I cut my teeth.
Yeah. So how did you go about getting your Emmy though? Like,
the
what
Emmys.
Was that for?
Those were fun. Yeah. And, you know, they have my name on it, but it's actually a whole team of people that worked on it. You know how it is, but those were regional Emmys for the region that covers Tennessee, North Carolina, maybe Georgia. I don't know. But Emmys are for things that have aired on television. And I did a bunch of commercials because a previous job I was a director and a producer and writer for this production company. And we produced tons of commercials. And so when the commercial would air, we would submit it to the Emmys and every now and then we would win. So for those 4 Emmys that I have, I probably submitted like 20 or 40 of them, you know?
Oh, wow. Well, you know, in this business, you never know when the dart's going to land. You just got to keep throwing them, right? Yeah. So you worked in commercial world too. So talk a little bit about that. What was it like producing commercials? Because that's quick turnaround time, unlike film.
I love that.
That's where I mainly work, commercial work.
I love like the 30-second world. I love writing 30-second commercials. I love directing. It's like a little movie and you're done. You know, like movies take forever. Commercials is
forever.
They're very cinematic. They're very conceptual and you can be super creative and it's done. And so I love that. I would do that in a heartbeat. That was one of my favorite jobs because it's like, it's kind of like a little music video, you know?
Right. Yeah. Music video, I worked on a few of those. I'd rather do commercials because they are like 48 hours sometimes and you're listening to the same song for 48 hours. It can be a little,
like a torture session.
Overwhelming. Yeah. Especially if you don't like the song after maybe the 30th time it's played.
You know, I was a TV, you know, I was a director for commercials in a small market. So I had small market actors that I had to work with.
And we're not offended.
No, but it's hit or miss.
Small market actors, because a lot of times they want to fly in big names, or at least from New York and LA with the assumption, oh, well, since they moved there, they must be better or more qualified actors. I'm a Screen Actors Guild actor right here in North Carolina. Right. So needless, and I got my qualifier here in North Carolina on Dawson's Creek.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So like there's opportunities here. Yeah. And I'd love to hear how you were going about like with casting and all that process in smaller markets, because there's people who live everywhere USA that may be able to have that opportunity and don't realize they don't have to fly to LA.
Oh, no. I mean, you know good talent when you see it. And so I would hold auditions and you know, it was a mixed bag, but there's some people, I mean, like I was just texting this guy, Carson Nicely, who was just a local actor at the time, and now he's in LA doing really great stuff, you know. So there was good talent in Memphis, but then there was also really bad talent too. So and you make the mistake, you know, you start learning from the school of hard knocks. Like I was doing this jewelry commercial, and there was no on-camera dialogue, so I didn't think it was necessary to audition. I was just casting by just headshot alone. And boy, was that a mistake, because you have to meet these actors and you have to see if they could take direction or not, you know? Right. And so for something as simple as holding a piece of jewelry, like I remember we were trying to get this one shot where this guy is giving his wife or something a bracelet and he's holding it. I'm going to try to recreate it. Yeah. Okay. So he's holding like a piece of a bracelet or whatever, but he kept putting his thumb in front of it. So you couldn't see the jewelry, and I'm like, move your thumb. And then every take he would just keep, I'm like, dude, just move your thumb. I'm not even asking you to read a line. I'm just asking you to move your thumb, you know? Yeah. And so, there was this one time I casted, so I made this mistake twice, I guess. I casted a really beautiful girl to play. It was a furniture commercial, and all she had to do was like hang out by the furniture. Like there was no dialogue, but I picked her on her headshot and her headshot was great. But when she got on set and she smiled, she had terrible teeth. So that's another reason why you have to like meet people in person. Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with terrible teeth, but I'm just saying, like, you know.
No, it wasn't what you were looking for.
Right, exactly.
Because there's something for everyone, really, nowadays. So
but she had a great closed mouth smile. That was good.
She knew her assets. And that's one, funny enough, one of the things I always say about headshots and even comp cards, the goal is to look a little bit better in person. You know, I think, because you want them to be wowed, like, gosh, you know, happily, you know, not when you come in and they're like, oh, your headshot looks better than you, or so on. So that would be my advice out there. If you're creating shots, like, and all those filters and Photoshop, like if you're doing too much, you're not going to look like that. And they're going to be disappointed and see you and be like, this is not the girl we wanted, or guy for that matter. Or even using headshots that are 10 to 20 years older or younger. And that's not older, but younger. And then it's a lot like Match.com. You don't want to do that.
Yeah, you don't want to surprise people.
No, or be 20 pounds lighter or heavier, or whatever it may be. Those changes make a difference. But
I think meeting people is crucial for whatever you're doing, and not just for looks. That's what I'm saying. It's not just for looks,
chemistry,
but it's like for direction. Like, can you move your thumb to show the piece of jewelry we're trying to sell? You know, like that kind of stuff. Can you take direction is like the most important part.
Because you could have gotten a body double for him if his thumb had like an issue. You know?
But I'm just saying, like, that's another thing. If you're doing hand stuff, you got to make sure that people have nice looking hands, or it's just things that you don't even think about until you get on set. You really got to meet your actors, you know?
Yeah. No, and that's great for people who are looking to become actors, what different things they need to be aware of too, like what directors are looking for. It's not just a beautiful face, but being able to take direction. Yeah. So you had this wonderful career writing and producing. Share how you went from doing all of those wonderful jobs to corporate world and like you've had all these multi-careers. And I think so many times people are always like, oh, you have the same career for 25 years and you retire. That's not the case anymore. And I think with the pandemic, that definitely kind of opened up the floodgates where people started realizing, what else can I do? How can I prioritize my family life or whatever it is that they want to do? So how did you manage all of that?
Well, for me, it was really just kind of haphazard. I started journalism and I really enjoyed it. And that's why I'm doing the podcast today, because I really enjoyed it. And I enjoyed directing. Remember when I was doing all those commercials, I really enjoyed being creative. But then I changed. I wanted a job that paid well because I was starting a family, and so I'm now in the corporate world, which is awesome. I love my job, love it. I have like this Clark Kent, Superman thing going on, where I just have my coworkers think, nothing of me. I'm just some other guy there,
Yeah.
But I missed those two previous careers, the journalism and the creative world. And so that's where the podcast came about, because I needed to still have a foot in that world. Yeah. And really, when I started the podcast, I never, ever intended the podcast to be successful. I didn't even know when I started what success looked like for a podcast, because at the time it was still a hobby for almost everyone. Only like NPR or whatever was making money off of it, but I never even thought that it could be a way to make money either. It wasn't like something that even crossed my mind. So it really started as a hobby, and it accidentally got successful, which is awesome. Mm-hmm.
Now, share a little bit more about your podcast for those that may not know it. It is called Pretend. Yeah. And you also have another one that just started as well. So share first about your first baby, and then your
podcast wasn't enough, right?
Yeah, like, how do you have the time and the energy and the editing and guests? And
I'm actually coming up with a third podcast, just a pitch. I'm not going to actually produce it. And I'm going to try to sell it, because rather than just do it, I can't do unlimited amount of podcasts, but it's a really good idea. And so I'm going to pitch it to some networks and see if they pick it up. But the first podcast, the baby, is Pretend. Pretend is a podcast about people pretending to be someone else. So typically I'm talking with con artists, but it could be an FBI agent, because FBI agents, when they go undercover, they're pretending to be someone else. So it's really about deception. And I have some positive stories there, but I have some, like real classic true crime tales there. But it's just a big experiment about how to, of people pretending to be someone else. So like right now, I just released an episode about sovereign citizens who, I don't know if you know this, but they don't believe that the laws of the United States apply to them. Oh. They don't pay taxes. They don't have driver's license. They don't have marriage certificates. Nothing official. They don't even go by their birth name, because that's on their Social Security, and that is a false document. And so they're considered terrorists by the FBI, because they're just living this fantasy, bizarro world. But they're really, really dangerous too. They've been ambushing cops, killing them, courthouse, and then even up to January 6th, what happened in the Capitol, there was sovereign citizens there. And so it's like this quiet little terrorist movement that's happening that we're not really paying attention to. And so they're pretending to be non-citizens. That's the angle there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So because you mentioned you have a family. So when you're dealing with pretend and criminals and so on, how do you go about finding these guests, and how do you protect yourself from these? Because I delved into a little bit of race in my show, and my DMs were out of control. I was like, okay, I'm done. I don't want that kind of energy towards me. So how do you negotiate that, or how do you?
Well, this has been an issue with the family for sure, because we talk about it, because every time I do an episode, I'm just going into the eye of the hurricane for no reason. Like, I don't have to do this. But I did a series on how to disappear. And it's really interesting, because it's for people like you who are in the public eye, or people like law enforcement that, if let's say there's like a police shooting, right? And nobody knows anything about it. Nobody knows whether it was justified or unjustified or whatever. That officer could get doxxed. People show up at his family's house, could hurt him. A celebrity like Taylor Swift, has been broken into. Oh my God. It's like every month her house is broken into. Her dad's house gets broken into. People who are stalking victims, how do they disappear? And so this whole series was, or how do you fake your death if you wanted to fake your death? I did a series on that, like how to disappear.
This reminds me of that book, Worst Case Scenarios series.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, this is fun, but scary.
But really, it was a research project for me on how to disappear, because honestly, I don't want to be found. If I wanted to find out where you live, Camille, it would take me like 5 seconds. Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah. And so,
granted, I don't go by my legal name, so it helps a little.
That helps. And if I could go back in a time machine and not call myself Javier Leiva on a podcast, that would have been super smart.
But my last name is so rare. It's still, it would still take some time, but I'm a little hidden. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I did that episode in that series just to learn how to disappear myself. And you could still find me very easily, but I made it harder,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm still going through the process. I want to go all in and disappear for sure. So that,
so Javier, the vanishing man. Let's see how that works out.
Let's see.
Wow. So with doing your podcast, I think so many people are now interested in podcasting, and you've been able to get so much support with it. And also just you're everywhere with it. How do you think, because your goal wasn't to be successful, but guess what? You are. So how do you think that happened? What you think was that magic moment where you're like, okay, this is really taking off?
I think part of it is luck and timing, right? And I would clump those together, because when I started, it was like the window was closing. Right now, if you wanted to start a podcast, it would be so hard to compete against all the major networks, and every celebrity has. Oh my God. Especially during the pandemic, every celebrity is out of work and just picked up a microphone because it's easy to do. And so and I'm struggling against competing with those guys now. But if I wanted to start now, I couldn't. I don't think I would be successful. And then the other part is that I think I have a cool concept, the pretending. It's not just con artist, but it's that pretending concept that allows me to do all sorts of stuff,
Yeah. What's been one of your most fascinating, you think, guests that you've had on so far?
Well, that's a good question.
Or story.
Yeah. No, so, I hate to say this, but I try to make every episode better than the last, But I don't know. Well, I've had so many, but I'll pick one.
Okay. Yeah.
I had this guy who is a bounty hunter now in Mississippi. So he goes out and finds fugitives, right?
Yeah.
But he himself was a fugitive multiple times in his life. He was running from the law. And so but what a crazy character that was.
Yeah,
and then
it takes a criminal to find a criminal.
Yeah, and that's basically it. Yeah, he's one of them, And the other one that I thought was really this is what I'm best known for. This is what my listeners will tell you right away what their favorite episode was, when I went to a cult in Western North Carolina. I was invited into a cult, and the cult is called Word of Faith Fellowship, and their leader is this little 80-year-old lady with blonde helmet hair, and she is terrifying.
Oh, wow.
Yes, terrifying. And they have this screaming prayer where they hold your head and they all yell at you, and they've been accused of beating their members and forced isolation. So it's some pretty scary stuff. And I was invited to visit them, and I did 11 episodes on these guys because it's so fascinating. Actually, 12 now because I did an update. But yeah, that was intense. For sure.
No, well, I guess full disclosure, I once was in a cult.
Were you really?
Yeah, I was.
Yep.
Do you remember Triangle Church in Raleigh? Did you hear about them at all? They were really big at recruiting on colleges. It was like a non-denominational Christian church, and they did disciples and all of that. And I was a sociology major, so once the red flag started popping up, I'm like, oh, this is definitely a cult.
Yeah, because that's the thing. They don't say, hey, you want to join my cult? They
didn't even say, people will tell you this is a cult, but we're not a cult. And then you're like, wait, that's red flag number one. Yeah.
But it's so interesting from your perspective of how easy it is to get sucked in, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it was the whole isolation of being at college, trying to find your group. And I went to a very small private school. And so I didn't know a lot of people at North Carolina State. And I was just there for summer school. And I transferred for their because that was the only way I could get away from them. Like I would show up to the movies, they would be there. I would show up at work, they were there. Like it was just, and this was before cell phones. Well, I had one, but it was like a backbone.
So crazy.
Aging myself.
News, by the way, has your audience ever heard this story? Because this is awesome.
No. So it's just like when you brought that up, I'm like, because now it's like I get really like, nope, I'm not interested in talking to that person. They sound like a cult, or like I'm like, nope, not getting involved. MLMs. Don't want to get involved too much like cults. Like it's like fraternities. Nope. Don't want to be involved too much like
where's the line, right? Where's the line?
It's hard to tell sometimes. Yeah. And I really, and they start off being very charming and they love you and you're interested and they're talking about all the things you're missing in life. Cause I had like some father issues at the time because my parents were just recently divorced and so on. So I was easy bait, but also easy to like, this isn't right. Why
what you just laid out is classic. Because you're dealing with some issues. They love bomb you and they smother you. They just take up all the oxygen in the room and you
they're
can't
always
even
happy.
think for yourself. Yep. Always happy. Yep. Same thing.
So I was like, I want to be like that. Yep. No, I don't. Nope. I don't want to be a mindless zombie. So
I'm glad you got out. Yeah.
Me too. And it's funny thinking how all these different documentaries coming out lately about different cults and different organizations. So it's neat that you did
the
that
one with
Allison
Mack. I don't even remember.
Yeah, the NXISM or NXISM something, and like even the Scientology one, or even in the music industry to some extent. I feel like with the different things that are coming out with Weinstein and R. Kelly and all of this, it's like it's kind of cultish that you guys are just accepting this kind of behavior and no one's speaking up. And now that they're being interviewed and so on, you're like, dude, you were there. Why aren't you being arrested for? Or like, don't you feel? It's so weird to me, like watching these documentaries now where people are like, yeah, he was doing this right in front of me. Never, you were just like caught up in the machine. And so like even now with this season of my show, I'm making a point of like, I don't want anything like that. We just really want to make sure I'm supporting people that are in the positive side of things. So this is fascinating with you, like letting these people into your life or having access to you.
But my other podcast is even more dangerous. It's called Criminal Conduct. And so what I wanted to do was pretend it's more episodic. So like every episode's like a different topic, but I wanted to have a podcast where I could tell long stories, like 11 episodes on one topic or, whatever. And that's where Criminal Conduct came about. And season 1, my co-host and I were going after the sheriff in St. Augustine, Florida. And so we actually visited that town. It was super scary. But it's not scary anymore because we realized that there's nothing to be afraid of. But at the time, it was pretty scary going after sheriffs. And then the season 2, we were going after these rogue cops who were making false arrests and stealing people's money, planting drugs and stuff like that. So that one gets a little hairy. And then like we're thinking about season 3 and my co-hosts and I have this like really cool story idea, but it involves the cartel. And I'm like, I don't know. I think we might be pushing it on that one. We'll let somebody else cover that one.
I mean, the Mob Wives, they had a whole show. But I'm like, are you allowed to do that? So I watched for a little while just because I'm like, wait, I thought mob people weren't allowed to talk about mob lives and stuff. And so when they started getting arrested, like, well, what did you think? You're on a reality show talking about your mob involvements or criminal involvements and so on.
People tell me stuff all the time. And I'm like, should you be telling me this? And they're like, I think the statutes of limitations is gone. I don't know. I was like, all right, we'll see.
Right. No kidding. Yeah. Well, I remember last year, Tiger King was really huge. And they had the guy that was, he was, I guess, the inspiration for Scarface. And he was just talking about how he just he took the rap for some murders where it was actually someone else. And you're like, wait, so there's murderers still out on the loose that were going around throwing people into tiger cages and stuff. You're like, wait. Yep. I don't want to. I like stopped watching. It's like I don't want to live in a world where I know those people are out there.
Yeah, I know.
Sometimes. So, like, is there ever a topic that you just are 100% like, I'm not going to touch. I'm not going to get involved. It's too I mean, because the cartel is touching
cartel
on it.
seems to be like the one that it's such a cool story too. It's like, it's such a cool story, but I'm like, do I want that? I haven't fully disappeared yet.
Yeah. Oh, right.
I got to take care of that first.
Yeah. Wow. So what other future things do you see happening with you with podcasting or in the entertainment industry even?
I don't know. I mean, right now, was it last week? Yeah, last week on Discovery Plus, on Discovery ID, they did a documentary about me and my co-host for my other podcast, Criminal Conduct. So it was a show about sleuths, independent investigators, like going out there, or amateur investigators going out and investigating stories. So we have like our own episode on Discovery ID, which is super cool. I would love to do more television. I want to get back into television and do documentaries, because that's really what I wanted to do. But a podcast is easier, right? Than schlepping a bunch of lights and cameras and gears and but I would love to get
hours and editing
right, but that takes money and resources. But I think that with the podcast as a platform, it has opened up so many doors for me, like this Discovery ID thing. I would have never gotten that if it wasn't for the podcast. So I would definitely love to do more of that.
So what advice do you have for other podcasters as far as if they have a story in their mind? Because I know you said you were getting ready to pitch. Like what's your process for as far as that goes? Or what would you
of pitching?
Be willing to share?
Yeah. So just yesterday, this just took me one day, because you don't want to pour too much energy into a pitch, because chances are nothing's going to happen, right? Like this thing is probably just going to die. You have to. I mean, that's the reality of it, right? So what I did was I put together a PowerPoint, or not a PowerPoint presentation, but like a Google slide presentation with just really capturing the idea and the vision for the show. And then I wrote a script for a minute-long trailer. And even though it's not real because the podcast doesn't exist yet, the trailer, when I put it together, it should sound real. And I could send that to them, because I'm represented by UTA, United Talent Agency. So I could send that to my agents. Ooh, and they could
wait.
They could shop it around.
That's for the big guys.
Yeah, but that's for the UTA for podcasts.
But still.
Yeah.
Like,
but it's not
how did that go about? Oh,
well, I haven't had a good experience with that kind of stuff, because I feel like it gets really hot and heavy at the beginning. When you pitch something, everybody's like super excited about it. And then the longer it goes, it's like crickets and you don't hear anything. And so Criminal Conduct, that's how it started. I put together a pitch deck for Criminal Conduct, my other podcast. And before I ever produced it, and I did a trailer just like I just did yesterday, and I sent it to friends, and they're like, well, why don't you send it to UTA? And they're like, don't worry, because they're not going to reply. They never reply. But if they do, it's good, right? So I sent it to UTA, and they actually replied the next day. They loved it. So we got on a call, and we pitched the show to a bunch of networks, like at least 10 networks. New York Times, they pitched it to Wondery. They pitched it to the My Favorite Murder Ladies, and all these networks, right?
Yeah.
And we had meetings with all these people, and everybody liked it. But then as time went on, people lost interest in it. I guess they see something shinier, and then they go after that. Yeah. And so we ended up just self-producing it ourselves, because that went nowhere. So as exciting as that was, and as cool as that was, it went nowhere. So
I mean, you've got to see what the process was. So now you can just do it yourself.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Yeah. And actually the show was just as successful, I think. Just doing, I mean, it could have probably been more successful with some marketing machine behind it, but we put it out there, and it's in the top 0.5% of all podcasts out there. So we did that on our own. So
congratulations. That's amazing.
And that was just like tapping into friends. We put a little bit of ad money behind it, just to kind of grease the wheels a little bit. But I mean, that was just taking advantage of my network of people.
Well, at the same time, full disclosure, Mr. Red Hat is also a direct, like, you're really good at marketing.
Well,
So
that's my job too. Yeah.
like, let's full disclosure, because I'm like looking at your resume right here. Like, you designed some great marketing campaigns for Red Hat, FedEx, AutoZone, IBM. You kind of know what you're doing.
Yeah. That helps. That helps. I'm like a master of none. I know a lot of different things within the field.
Jack of all trades.
And so it helps. You know, the fact that I know audio production, I know how to design, I know how to write, I know how to. And the missing link here was that I never was talent. I never was in front of the camera. I never was behind the microphone. And so that was nerve-wracking and something that I'm still trying to get comfortable with, you know?
Yeah. What are some of your rituals before getting started, before a podcast, or to maybe handle some of those uncomfortables or twisties, as Simone Biles might call them?
Oh gosh, there's no prep time. It's just go, 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 go. And it's all a matter of taking advantage of 30-minute increments throughout the day, because I'll never get hours and hours to work on the podcast. It's like in the morning, I wake up before work, and if I could write a couple paragraphs, that's all. That's awesome. That's a success, you know? And then after work, you know, if I could, you know, voice something, that's awesome, you know? And then whenever I have like 30 minutes, I just take advantage of that. And that's how the podcast gets done. So there's like no mental prep work. It's just whether I feel like it or not. Like there are days when I'm just recording and I'm not feeling, you know, I haven't had my coffee yet or whatever. I'm just not in the mood, or I have a migraine and I'm like,
it happens,
you know, and then you just got to go, you know, because otherwise it's not going to get done, because it's just me. I mean, it's just me. So,
well, you have a co-host too.
Oh, for Pretend, it's just me, and then my co-host for Criminal Conduct. But I handle all the post-production work for that. Yeah, so he helps me write and investigate and stuff. But that's
good to know.
When the two shows go on at the same time, I almost had a meltdown. I almost couldn't handle it. It's a lot of work, and then work on top of that, you know, like I have work
family,
and a family. Yeah.
And like with the past year we all had, where we were working from home, school from home, everything's from home. So
but that actually made it easier, because instead of like commuting an hour to, or, you know, this wasn't an hour, but like 30 minutes to work, 30 minutes back. I mean, that's an hour I gained. You know? So
true.
Yeah. So every 30 minutes counts.
No, for sure. Because when I transitioned to podcasting, I was doing a 1 day a week show for 30 minutes on the radio. It was all about entertainment and just sharing different events that were going on in the Raleigh-Durham area as well. But I was interviewing different people in the entertainment industry, because I wanted to draw more attention to the fact that North Carolina used to be the top 3 in filming, and wanted to kind of bring that energy back after HB2 kind of killed it all here. Right. So, in the process of that is when the pandemic hit and everything shut down. Different publicists were contacting me about, did I know any podcasts? And I was like, no, I'm in radio, you know, like, why would I know? Why would you want to go backwards, is what I was thinking at the same time too. But it has opened a whole new world. And I think a lot more people, even though it's saturated, you just never know what opportunities can come from it, but also just putting yourself out there and meeting new people, and just like, I love
it's the long game. It's a long game. It's not about who does it best, who's more, you know, you can have like the biggest celebrity start a podcast and then they're just going to get bored and stop, you know. It's a little engine that could, you know, it's like, whoever could stick it out, you know.
True. So moving forward with everything that you're doing, you said you wanted to get back into documentaries and so on. And I wonder if you have any advice for anyone that you would like to share with like all the different careers that you've done. Like, is there anything that you would suggest? Because so many times people are like, you got to stick to one thing and one thing only, or don't quit. Well, they'll say, don't quit your day job, which you're able to do both. But sometimes, like I was talking to someone else, like you got to support your habits somehow way sometimes too. So what advice would you give about all of that?
Well, it's so funny, because we were just at the beach last week with my little niece, she's in high school. She's going into 10th grade or something like that. And the topic came up of like, what do you want to do? And she wants to do so many things. Like she wants to to film, but she also likes writing and she likes art and she likes music. And I'm like, okay, well, the instinct, the parent instinct is like focus, like focus, which she should focus. But the advice that I would have is that don't overthink it. It's like, what is it that you actually enjoy doing? And just do that, and if it doesn't pay well, then like you and I just said, find something that supports the habit.
Yeah. That you do kind of enjoy.
Right.
Yeah.
And still enjoy it. But then that was a really tough lesson for me because most of my career, my passion and my creativity was intertwined with my job. It was the same thing. And so like now I see them as two different things. They don't have to be the same thing. My job is my job and I love it and it's fun. And it's fine, like I love it. I'm never like unhappy there, but the stuff that really gets me going, that doesn't need to be the same thing. If you can separate those two things, then you'll be happier at your job. You'll be happy because you're doing art, you're creating whatever you want, and nobody's telling you. Nobody's telling you if they like it or they don't like it. And if they do tell you they don't like it, who cares? Like I just had somebody tweet at me the other day. It's like, oh, you brought up Trump again. I'm unsubscribing. Bye. Like I'm not doing this for you.
No.
And it's free.
Yeah.
And I didn't even say anything bad about you. I just mentioned the T word, and I was like, wait, you don't want to listen to it? That's fine. I don't care.
Right.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like when people announce they're leaving a Facebook group or something, like, okay.
Bye. See ya. It was nice knowing you.
Didn't know you existed before you told me you were leaving.
But I do appreciate the people that do listen and the people that give me good feedback because, I mean, I have a Patreon channel. I don't know if you do.
No.
And that's been so, I support other artists through Patreon, but a lot of people support me. And they do it for no reason either. Like I try to give them the perks and they don't even care about it. Like, like if you donate a certain amount, I'll give you a t-shirt and they're like, don't worry about it. I just want to support you. And I'm like, man, that is awesome because they're supporting my hobby. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. I mean, they're getting a lot out of it because they enjoy it and they want to keep me going. And so, I mean, it's awesome. My fans are like the best. I love them so much.
That's amazing because do I share this? Whatever. Who cares? I'll be honest.
Go for it.
Full transparency. I can't do the sponsor thing because it's just, I don't know. I think maybe it's because being
like
an actor,
commercials and stuff like that.
Yeah. Like I just don't want to, I don't like the no's. I get enough no's with auditioning and different things. So like even putting myself out to try to get sponsorships or doing Patreons or crowdfunding, I'm like, well, what if nobody does it? And then it's like, well, nobody does it now. So what difference would it make? But at the same time, it's like, I've had different people that I reached out to for sponsorships and they didn't pay or they didn't pay the full price. So it's like, I don't want to deal with all that because I'm not going to try to find you and do all that. And
I have an ad network though that takes care of that for me. So they deal with all the rejection.
Well, see, I started going to digital marketing with George Washington Business School so I could learn more of, I guess, the terms and tech and more about it. So maybe I could find another way to support my podcasting habit. But because I do it all myself too, like all the marketing and all that. And
we could talk offline on how to do that. Too. Yeah. Because I mean, that was a process too. That was like a different phase for me, like crossing over into Patreon support, but also having commercials. That's actually is the only negative part of my job, even though commercials bring me money, like it supports the show. It also made the hobby work. Because like all of a sudden I sold, this is a good problem to have, but I sold 12 months of HelloFresh ads or something. I don't know. Or like, I don't know, some commercial. I sold 12 months of it, which is awesome. Yeah. But guess what that means? I have to deliver 12 months worth of content.
Oh, right.
Like before, if I did like 11 episodes and I needed a breather, I would take a couple months off and then come back on. And now I just feel like every week or every other week, I have to like pump something out because I have this obligation,
Right.
So
well, it's a little different when they're also paying for the obligation. Maybe
it's awesome. No, it's a great problem to have. But I'm just saying, like, it took this like really cool, nice hobby and made it another job, basically. Yeah.
Well, and so that's the other part of it. I have been getting like other paying gigs, but for the actual podcast, I'm like,
well, you
so
gotta
much
think
work
about
already.
Well,
but
the podcast also could be just a way of putting yourself out there and becoming like a subject matter expert on Raleigh entertainment. You know what I mean? So like, even though it probably doesn't pay for itself, it probably opens up other doors that you didn't realize, you know?
Yeah, that's the part. Because like people are always like, well, how do you monetize? And I'm like, I don't really care about all that part because I enjoy it and I don't want to dirty it up with maybe having sponsors I don't like. I mean, luckily HelloFresh is a fun one.
But I reject
free food out of the deal too, you know, but there's still that matter of like, what if you end up with a sponsorship and then the next week they end up doing something morally bad and now you're stuck promoting a brand and you're like, well, depending on the money, maybe I would. But, you know, it's also like with still working in the film industry or acting and commercial work, I don't want to end up causing conflicts where because I make more money as a Screen Actors Guild actor because you get residuals and so on, as opposed to with you wouldn't. So it's like, I don't want to oversaturate myself in a possibility that it refuses bigger opportunities, if that makes sense. But, you know, if I have that problem, I'll let you know. So, but still, well, I'm glad you brought this up because there's so many different ways that you can make money in podcasting and to not feel limited into only getting sponsorships. And like you mentioned, becoming an expert, there's so many different ways that you can find ways to make your hobby your career. So, and even with like your niece, like with her being so young, you just never really know what could be available to her by the time she's career age. Or, I mean, there's kids now there. Like one of my
what the difference is?
She has 300,000 on TikTok. Her daughter doesn't. She's 12. So it's like, you really never know.
But you and I didn't have that when we were that young. Like,
we didn't even have MySpace.
If we wanted to make a film, we had to know somebody who had a film camera. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like, now you have everything in your pocket. Everything. And we didn't have that advantage. So that's what I told her. I was like, take advantage of it, because if Camille and Javier had it back then, we would have, who knows where we would be right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even like when you were talking about marketing and all that, like there's so many tools to help. So you don't have to hire people out to some extent. Like I use Canva to do a lot of my marketing things, or I've heard of people that could just use Fiverr here and there, different platform stuff so you don't have to do it all. If you do have any deficits, there's other things that help you. And is there anything you would like to share on that aspect too? Like different things that have helped you along the way that people can use, or?
Well, I don't know. I mean, is your audience kind of technical? Because there's a
little bit of everything. Yeah, it runs the gamut.
Really? There's one tool that has been such a lifesaver. It's called Descript, Descript, and it is like sorcery. It is unbelievable. You should probably use it. So basically, it transcribes all my interviews into text, right? And then it assigns like speaker names. So like I could say, oh, this was Camille, this is Javier. And so now you know Camille and Javier. And as I'm crossing things out, it's actually editing the audio. And if I move like this paragraph up, it moves the audio up. And so by the time I'm done writing a script, the whole damn thing is edited. It's crazy. I mean, it's not 100% edited, but it is like 90%. So then all I got to do is like add music, clean it up, boom, ship it. I was able to turn around this last episode in like 24 hours. I mean, not the writing. The writing took a long time, but like not the writing, but the reporting and the investigation part took a lot longer than that. Right. But putting it all together, I was able to turn it around in 24 hours. It was nuts.
Okay, I'm very impressed.
And then it uses artificial intelligence so I read 10 minutes of The Wizard of Oz, and it learned my voice. And so when I type now, like my narration, it's typing and in my voice. Like if I press play, it's me reading what I just typed that I've never voiced before. It uses like deep fake technology It's so mind blowing. And like, I thought
you were going to say like Calendly or something. You went real good. This is great information. Yeah. Go ahead,
it's just mind blowing. And like, I'll never use my deep fake voice like on the show, but it is a good scratch track, what we call a scratch track, where it's just a placeholder. And so I know and so I just have to replace my deep fake voice with my real voice and then pump it out. But I mean, it took what used to cost a lot of money when I used to farm out the edit, for my like that costs like a couple $100, and then the writing, I just combined it into one step. It's really cool.
No, see, I've been using, so like I do video, so I use YouTube, the transcripts from there, and it's such a pain because it doesn't separate by speaker.
Okay, you need to,
and it's by time, and so I like delete out the time stamp, and then and then like halfway through, I'm like, I don't care.
You need to do this.
Like, this is the voice. This isn't for writing. But now you just made it easy. Plus, I'm dyslexic and ADHD, so like. It's really easy for me to get distracted and rabbit hole. So this, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Did it. I'm so glad I asked that. So
it works with video too. Just saying.
Life just got so much easier.
I never used it that way, but yeah, it works with video. It's nuts.
See, you're making it easier and easier for the solopreneur over here.
Well, you gotta find shortcuts because
you really do. Yeah. You really do. Because I do a lot of things on my phone, but for the most part, it's on my laptop. But like, I don't know if you're good about sitting in ergonomic chairs all the time while you're doing your work. I am not. Sometimes I'm laying in my bed. Sometimes I'm on the couch, like where, the 30 minutes wherever you can. So I'm watching TV with my kid or doing other stuff while I'm working it. So it's like anything that can keep me off my device more sold.
Yeah.
So
you need your life back.
That one.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to end up having like elephant legs from sitting so much. I'm going to keep it up.
I have the standing desk too. So like halfway through the day, I raise it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's smart because I did get like a massage chair. So like I have that going sometimes, but then you see me doing this, rocking during Zoom. You're like, okay, maybe I need to chill out on my massage chair.
That's right.
So, but anyway, thank you so much, Javier. This has been amazing. Tell everyone where they can keep up with you, where you want them to keep up with you since you're getting ready to disappear. And so where can they find you?
Find
and
me
more
before
about
I disappear.
Yeah.
At Pretend Pod, and that's like on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Pretend Pod. I think it's all one word. Or you can go to pretendradio.org or criminalconduct.net. Those are the two podcasts. So we'll see if the third one.
And make sure we check you out on Discovery Plus too.
Oh, yeah. The show's
I saw that on Twitter, but it went over my head for some reason because I should have watched it before I interviewed you.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's called Citizen PI, the show.
Okay.
And it's episode 1.
Okay.
So.
Perfect, because I can get the 7-day trial.
That's right.
Get it over because I was trying to watch some old Design Stars and discovered it was only on Discover Plus, but I was like, let me wait
that's what they were saying. They're like, oh, but it's only going to be on Discover Plus, and I'm like, oh, that sucks. Now my mom can't watch it. It's like, but they're like, no, but this is exclusive. This is a good thing. I'm like, no, it's not, because nobody's going to watch it.
Well, I mean, I have DirecTV, I have Netflix, I have, it's like I can't afford if I had every streaming thing like. And the NFL tickets getting ready to start back again. It's my husband will be looking at me like,
all right, that's enough.
It podcast officially costs you too because you're streaming everything. But anyway, thank you again, Javier. I will make the 7-day trial to make sure I watch because that's worth it. That's so thanks again.
Well, thank you for having me. This was fun.
It was my pleasure. And have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. This is my guest, Javier. And make sure you watch Pretend Podcast, as well as make sure you tune in to the E-Spot with Camille every Thursday at 1:00. Thanks again.